sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Rabbi Sherman from Sinai Temple in Los Angeles. This week we are joined by an Israeli-American baseball legend, Ryan Lavarnway, Boston Red Sox World Champion catcher in 2013, Team Israel Olympian 2020, author of the new children's book, Baseball and Belonging. Next week, Ryan Lavarnway will be right here at Sinai Temple and Sinai Akiba Academy in Los Angeles. We're going to bring him home, and we're excited to have Ryan with us. Ryan, it's great to see you. How are you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
So I actually saw you in person last year about this time in Denver at the JNF USA conference. And I remember on a Friday night, you were speaking to the teens about your journey to Israel and your rediscovery of your Jewish roots as well. I want to put that aside for just a moment, but let's talk about important things in the world, which of course is the LA Dodgers World Championship. I bet I was going to surprise you there.
Yeah.
What do you think? The Dodgers winning, home crowd here. How'd they do that? Was it expected? Your baseball take on that?
Oh my God. Well, after they spent $1 billion on players last offseason, you certainly hope that they had the greatest chance to do it. Looking at their lineup, it's a modern day murderer's row with 4 MVPs right off the bat, and then all the way 1 through 9, I think in the playoffs, every single person in their lineup had made at least one All-Star game. So they completed a very relentless, very complete lineup with very little room to breathe for opposing pitchers. They're fundamentally sound. I actually flew to LA for one of the games in the NLCS against the Mets. It was awesome. It was actually the one game that the Mets won. But I grew up a Dodger fan. At this point, I've played for half the league.
Yeah,
So
13
it's tough for me to choose a team to root for, but I definitely rooted for the Dodgers for the entirety of my life until I played pro, and I'm really happy to see them win.
Oh, have you ever beaten the Dodgers as a pro?
You know what? Because I was mostly in the American League, I didn't play the Dodgers much. I certainly did not play in Dodger Stadium as a Major League Baseball player. I played there for my high school state championship. And then I think the only one time I played the Dodgers was in Fenway in like 2013, and I don't think I played that game.
And the Freddie Freeman moment of that grand slam when he talks about, every child dreams of practices that in the backyard. Did you ever dream of something like that? And is there a dream that became a reality in your baseball career? Obviously winning the World Series, but sort of that moment that is stuck in your mind forever.
Yeah, you know what? Freddie Freeman doing that, it is every kid's dream. It's unbelievable. Also, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. I got the chance to play with Freddie in Atlanta. I was on that team with him in 2015. And you see how much he loves his family, how much he's just a real person. For him to have taken time off to be with his family in a hard time for his son earlier in the season, and then to be fighting an injury during the playoffs, you saw that in one of the last games of the season when he hurt himself, and you're like, oh no, is he out for the year? To do that and then share the moment with his dad, which is what everyone dreams of. But then after the game when they interviewed him and he said, I would gladly strike out 1,000,000 times in that situation for my son to be healthy. Oh my heartstrings. Yep. How could you not love baseball?
I was at the Dodgers-Phillies game the day he came back, and that standing O was pretty amazing, and you just felt the emotion.
God. I mean, he's such an awesome, awesome guy. Easy to root for. Same with Mookie. I played with Mookie in Boston a little bit. Such a quality human being, and I think that's one of the things that sets this Dodger team apart is that you could root for most of them as good people too.
Yeah. And we need that in this world and in the sports world, really. And I think that's what sports brings to us, not only a distraction, but actually the goodness of what people have in their heart.
Yeah.
And your story does exactly that. So we're going to talk sort of 2 parallel paths because you're talking to a rabbi on a podcast who loves sports and has seen the impact that sports can make on the world. Your baseball upbringing at El Camino and in the Valley, where I actually used to serve as a rabbi at Shomrei Torah Synagogue right on Valley Circle Boulevard. So I would watch all those teams as I was on my way to work. And your Jewish upbringing. So let's start with the baseball upbringing. When did you realize you had the potential to do something beyond El Camino and actually go to the Ivy League at Yale and then eventually the major leagues?
Oh, goodness. So I started playing baseball when I was 5 years old because my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Enfield, told my parents that I was bad at sharing. Like that's the impetus of me starting to play baseball. And why baseball versus another team sport? You know, my dad loved baseball. He played it in high school. He played pickup at the park. For like when he put himself through college working at McDonald's, they had like a McDonald's Park League team. So that's my how I started. I think I made the All-Star team my first year when I was 5. I always kind of had a knack for it. And when I was 5, I decided I was going to play in the big leagues. Much like every 5-year-old has a crazy dream of being an astronaut or a doctor or whatever, but nobody ever told me I was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe in the power of self-belief and the power of really buying into the dream. And luckily, I grew up in an area where there were other people from the neighborhood or people from the city that had made it to the major leagues. So there was an example of there's a path, this is possible, even if it's unlikely. And I always really believed it would happen. By the time I got to high school, it wasn't as realistic maybe as I thought, because I didn't play on my high school team until my senior year of high school on the varsity team, because we had another kid that was in my grade that was just better than me at catcher. So I actually, not only did I not play on the varsity team until my senior year, I also never played my main position on the high school varsity team. So I had to go play another position to get in the lineup. Thank goodness the coaches got creative to get me in there, or else my baseball career would have stalled out right then and there. It wasn't until really my senior year when I got to play on the varsity team. I had a great year. I guess you could call it like a breakout year, or where the heck did this guy come from type of year. And pro scouts started talking to me, but I had already committed to Yale. So then I started going to Yale, and the rest is history.
And you actually talked about in some of the interviews that I saw about your journey through the big leagues was that often it takes somebody just to see you, not during the difficult times or the bad times, but throughout that whole trajectory. Talk about that and what it means to be seen, not just on the great days, but even the difficult days that you're struggling, but are going to lead somewhere.
Oh man. So I coach some leadership now. I coach some mindset now. And this is a story I don't think I've ever told on a podcast before. So I'll give you a
Rabbi on the sidelines, always the first.
This story. I generally go somewhere else with this, but I was talking about how somebody believing in you in the right moment can really lead to success for you. In 2018, all right, so at this point I had 4 seasons up and down with the Red Sox. I had played in the big leagues for the Orioles and the Braves and the A's already, right? I had parts of 6 years in the big leagues at this point. I'm playing for the Pittsburgh Pirates in AAA, and I'm riding the bench in AAA. And not only am I riding the bench, when I do get to play, I'm playing very poorly. So I'm not confident. I don't know where my place on the team is. And I end up going to my AAA manager. And I had the maturity to see the writing on the wall. I said, "Hey, Skipper, how much longer can I play like this before you release me?"
Wow.
Point blank. And he said, "Ryan, sit down. Like, I don't care how you hit. You're here to manage the pitching staff, to help the younger players, to play defense, to post when I need you to post so that everyone stays healthy. And as long as you do those things, we're not going to release you. Don't worry about it. Take care of the pitchers, take care of your teammates, and the rest will take care of itself." And starting that day, I started playing so much better that not only did I make the All-Star team that year when I had been playing so poorly and backing up, I made the All-Star team that year in AAA. I also ended up getting a big league call-up for the entirety of September with the Pittsburgh Pirates and hitting .666 for the Pirates that year. Wow. It started with that conversation.
I want to ask you something that's going to be maybe a strange question, but going back to the Pawtucket Boston thing, was Steve Hyder the broadcaster when you were there?
Probably. I was up and down Pawtucket Boston for 4 years, and I feel like we had 3 play-by-play, if not 4.
Was it Dan Horde there too, or no?
And all of them ended up with big league jobs, either in the big leagues of baseball or even football.
Steve Hyder was actually my first guest, and it's an amazing story that I can share with you later. So you're a catcher. Tell us about your first big league game first, and then we're going to go the spiritual Jewish route for a few moments, and then we're going to combine them. So You get a call up. What is it like? I know I watched an interview with you saying it's just like a minor stadium, but 3 extra decks on there with 70,000 people watching. What does it feel like to really make it?
Oh, man, my call-up story is I'm playing in AAA. I'm playing great. I'm reigning AAA Player of the Month. I hit 12 homers in 14 days, something insane. Banging down the door, the Boston media is like, "We got to call this rookie up." But in my head, I'm like, where am I going to play? It's David Ortiz or it's Jason Varitek. Like, you're not dumping either one of those. Like, those are 2 Hall of Famers that play my positions. But we're watching the Boston game on TV because they have a day game and they're flying to Kansas City the next day. We're in Pawtucket with the night game. So after batting practice, I'm watching the Boston game and David Ortiz gets pulled because his Achilles hurts. And as I think to myself, like, I wonder what that means, I get a tap on the shoulder. Hey, the skipper wants to see you.
Oh my gosh.
So he calls me in. His name is Arnie Baylor. He ended up being our big league first base coach for the World Series year. Arnie goes, you're going to fly to Kansas City. The team's there already, or the team's already on their way there. David Ortiz is going to see the doctor. Kevin Youkilis is also going to see the doctor. If either one of them can't play, you're in the starting lineup tomorrow.
Wow.
If they're both good, you're going to turn around and fly right back. So you can't tell anyone this is happening because it's not for sure. And I'm like, what? Like, you just told me my dream's coming true, maybe. So I flew to Kansas City. I told all my friends and family, like, don't book a plane because I don't know if it's true or not.
Right.
I land. They say, get to the stadium. You're hitting 7th. And I went to the field. It was a whirlwind. I got my helmet. I was DHing that night. I went 0 on the first game. And then only one of my friends went to the airport and booked a standby flight. So he made it. My one friend, Stefan. Everyone else got there the next day, and they got to see me get my first hit, my first RBI, and it was awesome.
And then just take us to the World Series. You know, not everybody makes it to the major leagues. Not everybody makes it to the playoffs. And not everybody, as I saw you show that ring to so many of those teens at the JNF USA conference, not everybody gets to own that ring. What's it like to get that last out in the 9th and realize that you're the champion of the world?
Oh, man, it was so cool. That's so I didn't get to play in the World Series, so I didn't catch the final out. I wasn't on the field. I didn't get any hits and any at bats. But in the dugout, stress eating because I cared so much and couldn't do much, or putting in a rally dip, even though I don't do tobacco, but I was trying to help the team with anything I could, right? If it might help by some voodoo magic, whatever. It was incredible. It's everything you dream of. You run out on the field. You're so excited you can't contain it that your body's jumping up and down and you're screaming, and 40,000 people are screaming with you. So unbelievable. And it's the thing of, no matter what you do as an individual, you can only go so far. The success as a team with a group of guys that worked for it for 9 months, bled, sweat, tears, travel all over the country. That year we had the tragedy in Boston with the marathon bombing. That the whole city was pulling for us. It meant something to a lot more people than just us. So it felt unbelievable to be a part of something that's so much bigger than any of us.
And take us then back to California with El Camino, or not El Camino, but growing up in Woodland Hills, a fairly sizable Jewish population. What was your Jewish identity? Was it absent? Was it present? Was it all baseball? Were there any combinations? Was there a Sandy Koufax Yom Kippur story? What did that look like growing up?
Growing up, my mom was raised Jewish, and they had a white with blue ornament Christmas tree in their house when she was growing up. My dad was raised Catholic, but was kind of disenchanted with it by the time he was 12. So in our house, I never went to temple with my family once. I never went to church with my family once. I wasn't bar mitzvahed. But because there is that huge Jewish population in the area, I feel like 50% of every team I was ever on was Jewish. Mm-hmm. We were around it. So I would go to temple with my friends if I happened to be sleeping over at their house that day, and it was fine. And I also went to church with my friends if I happened to be sleeping over on that day, and that was fine too. My best friend in elementary school was Jewish until he went to a more reform or a more Orthodox school. So I was around it all the time, but I personally kind of identified as half and half for a long time. Mm-hmm. until I played for Team Israel. And, this is the story that I tell in my kids' book, is that it took stepping into it. It took embracing it and participating in something for me to feel embraced by the community or enveloped by it. And then, there was a moment I had in front of the Western Wall in Israel, and another moment where I was wearing Israel across my chest before the game as the national anthem played, that really just helped me, like, oh yeah, this is me.
And there's the Jewish piece, but then there is the Israel piece, which sometimes don't actually go hand in hand. So you didn't have necessarily the Jewish involvement, a more cultural piece growing up in Woodland Hills in the San Fernando Valley. But what about the Israel piece? Was that even on your mind? Did you know that that place existed and had a place in your heart, or was it not until that baseball experience?
I couldn't have told you where it was on a map. I couldn't have told you that. I honestly, growing up, I stayed so far away from religion at all. I didn't know the tie that Jewish people had to Israel until I was on my way to Israel reading the traveler's guide. And I was like, oh, this is important. This is really important. And then now with everything going on in the world where it feels like being anti-Semitic has somehow become popular and acceptable, which blows my mind. I feel like I have some responsibility to help educate people, especially because I do so many speaking engagements. I have a voice, I have a platform. I try to make sure that I'm as educated as I can be to help educate people, because a lot of, I think, comments, in my experience, come from ignorance, not from pure hatred.
So let's take us on that journey to Team Israel. That famous film, not the Stealing Home, right? The second one, Striking Gold, Striking for Gold. But the first one,
Heading Home and Swinging for Gold.
Swinging for Gold, sorry. But Heading Home talks about Peter Kurtz, who's been on the show. Actually had Ty Kelly on the show a couple years ago. How they try to find these people. Oh, that guy's name is Goldberg. He must be Jewish. Let's talk to him. How do they find Lavarnway, or how did you find them to even begin that process to that connection to Israel?
So they found me. I definitely got a call from Peter Kurtz. How he found me, I'm not entirely sure. I participated in Maccabi games growing up.
Oh, nice.
So there may have been a record there. And I was never shy about saying I'm half and half. My mom's Jewish. My mom's always been Jewish. I just didn't feel super tied to it. So I don't know exactly how he found me, but Lavarnway is on the Roman, the Catholic whatever side that from my dad, because my mom's maiden name is Wexler. So you would have found it there.
Unless you were playing for the Yankees that didn't have the names on the jersey.
Yeah.
But they found you. And when you get that call from Peter Kurtz, you're like, nah, no thanks. Because I know the story that you told at the JNF convention, which was amazing, was that you were really aiming for Team USA. And that exactly didn't happen. So maybe share with us what happened there.
Oh, 100%. So the first time I got a call from Peter Kurtz was in 2012, actually. And he asked if I would participate in Team Israel. They were going to put together a team for the first time ever and try to qualify for the World Baseball Classic. The only catch was that the qualifier was in the month of September, which is still during the Major League season. And in 2012, I was in the Major Leagues at the time. So I had agreed to participate in 2012. I said, heck yeah, let's do it. But then I was just unavailable. In 2016, he called me again. He said, hey, we just missed in 2012. We came really close. Can you help us get over the top? You and whoever else we can get. And I said, sure, I'll probably be in the big leagues. But if I'm available, let's do it. And again, in my head, I wanted to play in this tournament, which there was 0% chance that Team USA was going to call, because it's really the best in the world. And USA didn't have to qualify. They were already in. So that tournament I would have been available for, but they weren't interested. Once I played for Team Israel, I had this life-changing experience. And it really changed how I see myself as a man, how I see myself in the world, my responsibilities, the people I want to be role models for. It's changed everything about my life. We're raising our daughter Jewish here in Denver. We're active members of the Jewish community here in Denver.
I love it.
Fast forward, and I sometimes I lose track of where I'm going with this, and I want to make sure I say it, because in 2020 for the Olympics, Team USA did call.
Yes.
And Team USA said, Ryan, we want you to be our backup catcher. And I said, you know what? I'm playing for Israel.
Actually, when you said this in Denver, when I heard it the first time, you were wearing your Team Israel jersey, and you told them, not only can I not play for you, but this is my home. I found my home jersey, and that was truly amazing. Telling that story. Take us to the Olympics. Obviously, 2020 is a little different in terms of the pandemic, and in I believe Korea. But what did that mean to you? You mentioned the Hatikva. There's the fun stories with the mensch on the bench. What's a story from there that you can tell a kid who loves baseball, that is Jewish, that is discovering their Jewish identity through baseball, that they can do this too one day?
Man, so the Olympics were in Tokyo, and
Japan.
It was the COVID Olympics, so it was interesting, and it was very different because even if you've never watched a sport in the Olympics, you've probably seen opening ceremonies at some point.
Mhm.
Everybody watches opening ceremonies. Well, we walked into an empty stadium and we're all waving our hands. And if you find me on the broadcast, looking this big in the big group, you see me go like this, and then I kind of like lower my hand. I'm like, who am I waving to? I'm waving for the camera's benefit, but there's nobody here. So that was weird, and that could have been a cooler experience, but it was still very cool. And what they actually did for the Olympics for us for the first time, we were the first team in any team sport to play in the Olympics for Israel.
Wow.
And certainly the first team sport in 40 years since the tragedy that happened at the Olympics. So they
And
held
referring to the Munich Olympics, which of course is
Olympics, yeah.
important. That was not necessarily commemorated in the most appropriate ways over those 40 years.
And so right before they announced us to walk out, they had that moment of silence that people have been craving and begging for 40 years. So that finally happened. That was a lot of closure. And, obviously I wasn't born when the tragedy happened, but when we went to Israel to get our citizenship, they took us to the Olympic Museum, the Olympic experience, and they taught us the history of Israel Olympic sports and obviously the tragedy. So we were very up to date on everything that's happened. And I was so glad that the Olympics, I feel like, finally did the right thing. And if we had anything to do with encouraging them to do that, I feel happy about that. But just as landing the plane to answer your question, how can I inspire a young kid? Here's what I would say. I never thought I'd play in the Olympics because I'm honestly not that athletic, right? I think of the Olympics, I think of the fastest swimmers in the world, the fastest runners, the best athletes. They have six packs. They're huge. They're beautiful. I'm none of those things, right? Like, I'm the slowest runner on every field I've ever played on. As a baseball player, my throwing arm is very average. I'm not great at defense, right? I can hit, and I can hit for a little bit of power. And it's kind of the only skill set I have from an athletic range. Like, I could play pickup basketball and be just one of the guys with everyone else. But I got to play in the Olympics, right? It's a dream I never dared to dream. And Israel had a huge part to play in that. So, like, whatever your craziest dreams are, dream even bigger. And you could do it, and you could be who you are, and you could find where you belong and the people that you belong with in the process.
So it wasn't just you were playing with Team Israel, practicing here, but you did experience Israel. What was the reception of American players becoming Israeli citizens for this while you were on the ground practicing, and or some of those moments that you realized, like, this is so much bigger? Actually, you said in one interview that it's truly unbelievable that this is more than just a baseball tournament. 2 generations after the Holocaust, I'm playing for Team Israel. What was the reception of you in Israel?
Wow. That feels like a big question. When we were at the one baseball field that existed in Israel in 2017, there was Israeli kids, expat kids, baseball fans that were freaking out. They had all of our baseball cards. They knew all of our stats. They knew every team we'd ever played for. It was awesome. Awesome. We ran a baseball camp for kids. The kids were so into it. They were so happy we were there. And then we did a press conference afterwards, and it was the opposite. In the press conference, the media let us have it. They were like, who do you think you are to represent us?
Wow.
And they really let us have it in a way that I've since come to appreciate, right? In a way that I've since, they're not front runners. They're not just like, oh, you're good at sports? Great, we'll take you. They wanted to know that our heart was in the right place, that we were going to really invest in ourselves, not just our time and our competition, but like invest in caring about growing the game of baseball in Israel, develop local talent. We've donated millions of dollars to build more baseball fields and done coaches clinics to help the coaches, to help the players. Like, they wanted to know our heart was in the right place. And then once we overcame that hurdle, then they were all in.
That's amazing. And let's go then to post October 7th. That's when I got to meet you and see you personally last year again. Imagine yourself without this experience, October 7th. Would that have looked like a different year this past year than the experience that you did have through baseball, but really connected to Israel?
Oh yeah, 100%. So I think I saw, or I think I said it in the speech where you saw me, early in my life, and I'm not ashamed to admit this anymore because it is my truth and I've evolved. But early in my life, anytime someone would make an anti-Semitic joke or a Jew hatred joke, I would almost dodge it like I was in the Matrix dodging bullets. And I didn't connect with it because I would think to myself, well, I'm only half Jewish. He's not really talking to me. He hates other people.
Mm-hmm.
He's making a joke about someone else, not me. And it didn't hit home because I felt like I wasn't connected to what they were talking about. Now that I have a very strong Jewish identity and a connection to my own Judaism, the Jew hate and the anti-Semitism, whatever it is, I feel it. And I feel it in a way that I connect with it. And the way that I've come to think about it is I love the good. I love being part of the community. I love having my connection to Israel. I love being a member of this community. I can't take the good without the bad. So it's almost like a burden of honor that I feel that everyone experiences this. This is my version of it. But I also now, again, feel like I have a voice and a responsibility to challenge them or to help educate them or to correct the behavior when it's correctable and not just from a place of pure hate. So it's totally changed my experience. Whereas I think if I didn't have this life-changing experience back in 2016, 2017, I would have shied farther and farther away from that half of me. And it would have been easier to just distance. Versus now I'm leaning in. How can I help? Where can I play my role to help this community?
And so the last time we Zoomed together, you were in a clubhouse, I believe was in Iowa, with the Cubs. Any experience this past year that you've been able to use that responsibility to educate young minor leaguers that they've either had a question about Judaism, a question about the war in Israel, a question about who you are and what makes you inspire others?
Yeah, you know what? It's within the baseball community. It's been mostly positive and supportive, which I really appreciate from my teammates, fellow coaches, whatever. A lot of the conversations I've had have been outside of the baseball world, where a lot of times maybe it's because I'm a big person, but I heard stories of how Hank Greenberg would just grab somebody by the shirt and say that again, and they would never say that again. I don't necessarily grab anybody by the shirt, but when I ask them to repeat themselves, they're very often not quick to repeat themselves or to clarify what they mean. And that's the approach that I take of, can you say that again? Because I'm not sure I heard you. And then people are like, oh, that must not be funny.
And so one of the things that you've done is write a book, not a biography, or a biography, yes, but not for adults, but for children, Baseball and Belonging. I know you have a copy there. Maybe you can show us. Why write this book for children about your experience through Israel, through Judaism, and in baseball?
So I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. Because this playing for Team Israel experience was so life-changing for me, I couldn't stop telling everyone that I met about it. I was like, you guys got to go to Israel. You got to dive in, whatever your thing is, whether it's Judaism, whether it's not, dive all the way in because you're missing out on life. And then I was on the Hillel circuit where I was talking to college kids about, you guys, you got to participate. You got to step into it because you're leaving something on the table if you only do it halfway. And it was actually my rabbi in Denver, Rabbi Black, who's written 4, 5, 6 books of his own. And he said, listen, your story is so inspiring that young people need to hear it. And it would be a mitzvah if you found a way to turn this into a kid's book because number one, being Jewish isn't always cool. So, being a baseball player is cool and you found it through being Jewish. So that's awesome. They need to see an example of that. They also need to see an example of somebody that chose Judaism. Like it wasn't just baked into your youth, your family. Like you actually found it through doing what you love and chose it, made the choice. And that's something that people need to hear. Also, that half and half identity, it's something that a lot of people can relate to. Whether you're half Jewish, half Christian, there's tons of mixed religion households out there. There's also somebody that's, half black, half white, or half Latino, half whatever, that I've gotten the nicest letters from people saying that they see themselves in the character, even if they're not Jewish at all. So I wrote the book. It was my rabbi's idea, and I'm super proud of how it turned out and the feedback that I've got from it.
So I think the lesson is listen to your rabbi. Is that correct, Ryan?
Listen to your rabbi. Yes.
I love that you're so, often you're a baseball player, I'm Jewish, but I'm Jewish. And the fact that you've really taken that step into the faith world is a really beautiful thing to see, and we're excited to welcome you into our own community as well next week. Just a couple of, based on your stepping into that Jewish community, maybe favorite holiday now that you've sort of experienced all those?
Favorite holiday? Passover, obviously. It's the best one.
Passover. Oh my gosh, we're going to talk about food on that. Wow. Why Passover?
Because all the food.
All the food. Okay.
And the story. The food and the stories. It's the best.
Wow. That's amazing. And fine. If you're going for the food, favorite Jewish food that you love?
I mean, matzo ball soup obviously is the best. It's the gateway drug to Jewish food. And brisket.
Love it.
And latkes.
Okay, then we're talking Hanukkah.
Do you know that I did not know you could do applesauce and sour cream at the same time on a latke until very recently?
It was never a pregame meal in
No, our half and half family didn't figure that out, and now my mind is like exploding with deliciousness.
Some of the baseball questions that I know people love to ask. Best or amazing teammate that you have seen in the majors?
Jackie Bradley Jr. and I were thick as thieves for the few months we played together. Our wives thought we were gonna, leave them for each other because we had so much fun together. Jackie Bradley.
And what about best pitcher to catch in the leagues?
Because I changed teams so many times, my best friend that was a pitcher ended up being Josh Zide from Team Israel.
Oh, nice.
But I think the pitcher that will be the first one to make the Hall of Fame will be John Lester.
Amazing. And what about that first home run? Who did he hit it off of?
My first home run was off of Zach Britton.
Nice.
Who's such a nasty closer for the Yankees now, but at the time he was a starter, and he hadn't learned his the pitch that made him all the millions yet.
And last question: 2028 Olympics are going to be here in Los Angeles. What's the projection for Team Israel through the World Baseball Classic, and hopefully Sinai Temple here in the Jewish community supporting a new bunch of Team Israel athletes on that baseball field?
Yeah, well, I'd say the odds are about as slim as they were the last time. There was 0% chance we should have made it to the Olympics last time, but we did. So never count out Team Israel. When I was in the Olympics, we had just walked into the dining hall, and I'm with one of the Olympic horseback riders. I'm not exactly sure what they call their sport, but she was a horseback rider, and we had just beaten Mexico for the Team Israel's first win in a team sport in the country's history in the Olympics. It was amazing. And she said, "The entire country is proud of you. We're always proud when we can punch above our weight." And that saying will always stick with me. We're always proud when we can punch above our weight. So land the plane, Ryan. Sorry. What are our chances? They're not good, but don't count them out.
That's Israel. That's why we sing Hatikva. That's why we sing the hope. Liyotam Chofshi B'Artzeinu, to be a free people in our land. Ryan Lavarnway, Boston Red Sox World Series champion 2013, Team Israel Olympian 2020, author of Baseball and Belonging. And next week at Sinai Temple and Sinai Akiva, right here, we're gonna work you hard, Ryan. But I know it's gonna be so inspiring for us, but I hopefully also for you to see the future of Jews, of sports, of Israel, and most importantly, of community. Ryan, it's so great to see you. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.